entertainment, insights. Don't take life too seriously. Welcome to Brainsky Unleashed. Hello and welcome everyone to Brainsky Unleashed. Today we have Leanne Linsky. Now, Leanne is an interesting cat because, well, she started a website. She's the founder and CEO of Plauzzable.com. That is an online, it's like an online comedy site. You can literally go watch a comedy show without leaving your couch. I mean, talk about unique. So, Leanne, welcome to the program. Let's talk about this.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm happy to talk about all things plausible and comedy and
I mean,
anything else.
why wouldn't you? It's also money in your pocket, right? So let's get it
Yeah.
out there. All right. So plausible, you came up with plausible. It is essentially a way to watch stand-up comedy from your computer, your couch, your phone, preferably not the driver's seat of the car while you're driving. That's probably not recommended. Do you have a disclaimer for that?
I'm sure my lawyer put it into the terms.
If not, you might want to put that in there. I might
Yeah,
try it.
exactly.
So tell me, tell me a little bit about this. What is the what made you decide to do this? I'll give you points for creativity, but go ahead.
So I decided to do it because I've been doing I took my first comedy class in 2001, and then 5 years later, after taking lots of classes in my nights and weekends, I ended up being laid off of my job for almost 13 years, and I was like, "What?" And so what else to do but pack 2 suitcases, move to New York City, and pursue comedy, completely and immerse myself. So I lived
Because
in
that's what all of us would do.
Right, I mean, why wouldn't you? So I did that and, was in New York for almost 9 years, then I moved to the West Coast in, California and continued my comedy, but I was like, "This is bananas," because now suddenly spending more time in my car on the freeway than I did on any stage. Like, I would have to drive hours just to get 5 minutes of stage time, and why hours? It's not because I was necessarily far from everything, but if you're familiar with LA traffic, you're in the car for hours no matter where you're going. So
The only way you're not in the car for hours in LA is if you're just moving it in and out of your driveway. Short of that, it's gonna be a long one.
exactly. So I was like, how do I get more stage time or an opportunity to work out jokes and connect with my fellow comedians in between in-person gigs? And so I thought, what if I take it online? Now this was in August of 2019 BC before COVID. And so I started doing things with existing technologies like Zoom, and I had a WordPress site for my other business at the time, and so I made a sign up page and basically cobbled everything together. And then my comics that used to attend my mic in New York for many years started, they some of them would attend and some new people I had met in LA, and they were like, "Wow, this is really great because I can also save time." I'm like, "Huh, maybe I'm onto something." So, I had decided I wanna figure out how to scale this, so I actually went back to school. I applied, to go get it to get into the master's program for Masters of Innovation and Entrepreneurship at University of California, Irvine. Got accepted. So, then COVID hit, right? And then
Which
everybody
we're
was
in California. I mean, if you were to be anywhere during COVID, California was it.
yeah, right? So COVID happened, everybody took everything online. I'm like, "Okay, well, clearly, there's opportunity here." So, I went back, I did my master's degree, and afterward got in incubators and accelerators, but during that time, once I created that minimum viable product before COVID and started experimenting with it, I was like, "Wow, this solves one problem of bridging the gap in between in-person gigs, but there's so much more opportunity to solve additional problems in one platform. Like, contrary to popular belief, most comedians don't get paid, unless they get TV credit, they're very well known and they get to a certain threshold in their career. But for the most and even then, they still go to open mics and do open mics for free. And I mean, that's how we work out jokes. Um, so there's this interesting business model where we do a lot for free, or we work for the theater or venue, or we have to bring X number of paying customers to it. So I decided I want to flip that business model and put the control into the comedian's hands, right? And so I basically created this platform where people could connect online. So it has the basic website, which everybody's familiar with what a website is, but you can look through a directory of comedians, you can look through a show listing, think TV Guide, right? What's happening, and then you register, but everything happens in real time. So, like, you and I are here in real time, and we can see and hear each other and interact, um, right away. That's what the shows are like. So, the comedian online is performing for an online audience that can see and hear that comedian, and the audience can see and hear the rest of the audience as well. So think of existing technologies like Zoom or Meets or something like that. But we designed it so that the audio, there's no audio delay or cutout because timing is everything to get laugh.
Right. I mean,
And
nothing could be worse than, a good punchline and
yeah,
then you
exactly.
have silence and then, "Ha, ha, ha,
Right? It's like throws the comics off.
ha, ha."
And then the other thing is the screen layout and everything and how, if other technologies are great. They got us through the pandemic. They're great for business conferences and meetings. But for entertainment, there's just different needs. And so we decided to integrate what we needed into that build out. And then also the other key thing is how do we get paid? So on Plauzzable, comedians have control to set their own prices. And then they get the majority of the ticket revenue. So even if one person shows up and buys a ticket for the show, they're making money. They don't have a threshold to achieve of 10,000 followers. And then you have to get a sponsor. Then you get access. Nope. All you need to do is produce a show, set a ticket price. One person shows up and they buy a ticket, you get the percentage of that.
I
So,
was gonna say, so, I mean, the house being plausible obviously needs to get a, portion of that ticket,
yeah,
but so this is essentially giving giving the comedian the ability to monetize it and probably actually do better than
yeah,
maybe regular stand-up? Would that be a fair assessment?
that is fair assessment. They can absolutely do better than they would in an in-person show. And yeah, if they do the basic math, they can earn more in 1 hour than they could, you know, in a month of subscriptions on another subscription platform and then have
Okay.
to create, like, content daily. It's like, why wouldn't you just do one really good hour of comedy and get paid for it?
Right. Yeah. No, that's I mean, listen, I give you a lot of credit. The concept is fantastic. When you think about what you've been able to come up with, it's different. It's outside the box. Now, granted, I will full disclosure, I have not signed up. I need to sign up and give this a shot.
Mhm.
Do you have any comedians that are fairly well known at this point? Do you have more famous people that are joining, or is it mostly a lot of just local comics who are trying to build their careers?
It's a large variety. I would say so like, there are people who definitely have had some successes under their belt. I can say that. They have TV credits. They've done a lot of there are some really good people. And there's a lot of newcomers as well. So I think it's a wide variety. It's also from coast to coast, but also other countries. We have a good number of comedians from Canada. We have
Interesting.
people from we have a comedian from Ireland, we have someone from the UK, we have someone I think from is it New Zealand, I wanna say? We have someone from Sri Lanka. Like, I've seen all these people as they've registered and signed up, come from all over, someone from Japan. So, yeah.
Wow. I mean, that's to be able to pull that together. I mean, yeah, you got to be pretty proud of yourself. That's pretty sweet.
Thank you,
Now,
I appreciate
how
that.
how much time do you spend on there, doing comedy?
I try to attend most everything, that I when I see people post shows or open mics, I try to attend everything I can to show support and answer questions. I also wanna make sure people are having a good experience, so I observe and see, like, are people struggling with anything? What improvements can I make? I I believe that I'm a very customer-centric, uh entrepreneur because in my mind, doing comedy for over 20 years, I know what I want, but I need to validate that that's what everybody wants, and
Right.
also that the way I put it together is, the least amount of friction and struggle, and so I try to be very responsive to their needs. So by attending everything, I do it for many reasons, but yeah, so I spent to answer your question, I'm on there quite often and
Okay.
daily. Yeah.
And I mean, but, when you're on there, are you also doing stand-up?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so
I host one of the
we can
mics
see.
on, Monday night, casual comedy, and casual, comedy was something that I did in, California, and also I ran a mic casual sketch in New York for over 7.5 years, so it's just kinda continuation of that.
Okay. Um, so I gotta ask,
Mhm.
what were you doing before comedy? What was that job that you were like, "Well, that job didn't work out. I'm gonna go to New York and do comedy." What was that about?
So, I did my undergrad in business, and when I graduated from UNLV, I got a job for a local home builder in Las Vegas, and I worked there for a year doing accounts payable in the accounting department, and then I got, hired by a national home builder, a Fortune 500, in their accounting department. A couple of us, migrated over to that company when they came into the Las Vegas market, and I stayed there for almost 13 years, and I went from accounting, I did market research for several years, and then I went, into customer service, or so I went into construction, I was a construction coordinator, then a back-end superintendent, then I went into customer service, I became an area manager for service, and then they asked me to be and during the whole time I was there, I did a lot of the events for, um, quarterly meetings and big events and things like that, and then they said, "You do all these events," and I was kind of the person who knew everybody, and so they created a position called, manager of cultural development. That was before we really heard anything about company culture, and I did that for several years, and I planned all of the company events. I did all of the new hire onboarding, a portion of that in conjunction with HR, and then we me and another coworker, we created a whole 90-day training program that they ended up rolling out nationally. So, like, I did all of these things, and then, all of a sudden, the home building market changed, and I was in the one department that was like, "Well, we could probably lose this very quickly." And so
Yeah,
yeah,
but I mean, you literally jumped from that. I mean, that's a gigantic jump to
yeah.
go to New York and do comedy. So where did the comedy for you come from? Was this out of the womb? Was this something that you just developed as a teenager? I mean, the desire to try and make people laugh?
Yeah, I my family's really funny. In fact, I was just talking to my brother earlier today, and he was, like, asking about Plauzzable because he's attended a few things on here, and he's like, "Maybe I'm gonna do some" so he's writing some jokes. My family is very funny naturally, and, my mom and dad are very quick-witted, and, my dad was always my dad's a really great joke teller, and my brothers got that from him and my mom, and then so I was the youngest, so it's kind of like I had to, right? And my parents always would encourage me to tell all these jokes when I was a kid, and they'd be like, "Let's check out her out telling jokes," and people would be like, "What?" Um, so they were always encouraged it, and then when I got into high school and in college, um, my better my classes I excelled in were anything to do with any public speaking or presentations and communications, and so I did really well in those, and I'd always try to incorporate humor at and, like, in one of my international marketing classes, my poor professor, like, we were doing these presentations on, like, the G7 meetings or so I don't know, something that
Right.
was happening, and each person had a country they had to represent, and everybody was, like, speaking they'd start their presentation, like, speaking a line from that country in that language, I think we had Germany, and I'm like, "I don't know German." My partner's like, "Me neither." I'm like, "Oh, I've got an idea." So I spoke Pig Latin, and I was
Ah.
like, "Oh, Pig Latin, I don't know German." And my teacher just put his head down on his desk, and everybody just started laughing for the longest time because it was, like, a really serious class, so it broke all the tension. Um, so from that point, my advisor in college actually said, "You really need to go into entertainment somehow." And he encouraged me to, like, meet with other people in the entertainment industry in Las Vegas, and then, yeah, I was always trying to help bands out and promote their shows and things like that.
I think I
Yeah.
like the fact that your teacher says to you, this is maybe a teacher, that has some sort of like mentoring capability to you. So you're listening, right? And you're like, yeah, yeah. I think you should go into entertainment. And you're like, oh yeah, totally. I'm going to go into accounting.
Right? Oh, I did not wanna I had accounting was my least favorite class.
Oh yeah, no, I love entertaining people, making laugh. Accounts receivables, man. That's where it's
Right?
at.
But yeah, I was so disappointed to be doing accounts, but, like, however, the people I worked with were hilarious, like, we laughed so much, which is scary for the company, but, yeah, I did this accounting, not what I had planned, it was, like, my least favorite subject, uh, which is actually cool that I could get a job doing, my worst worst
I mean, are
thing.
you good with numbers? Like, you know,
Y
it
I didn't
is that a
think so,
thing?
but I guess I do alright. I
I
mean,
mean, clearly you had to be okay.
yeah.
It's kind of a funny jump from yeah, you got a real natural talent for entertainment. Oh, I'm going for accounting,
I
right?
know, it's so I had really wanted to work for the phone company because during high school
Because
and
that's funny.
'cause yeah, I had this job working for the phone company for, like, 5 years during high school and
Which phone company? Are we talking like the local phone company? Is this like Verizon, AT&T?
oh,
Or
this
was this back in the day, like when it was the bells?
Bells, Illinois Bell,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
for
So, like,
Mama
what were you
Bell.
doing? Were you, like, selling long distance, or were you, like, an
What?
operator, or again, accounting?
So so the first
Yeah.
so I worked there some summers, and then I worked there during the whole school year when I was in community college my first 2 years. So I started out working like clerical. They called it clerical back in the
Right.
day. I was a clerk and I was assistant secretary to the like big area manager or whatever when we had Lotus and
Oh,
Word Perfect
wow.
and
That's oh
carbon
my
paper.
you just took me back. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
I
you're
feel
welcome.
old.
Yeah, oh, good old carbon paper.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
so
Ditto.
right? Did you get the memo?
Can I just say the smell of a ditto, I can still smell that in my nose as I say the word ditto, because
Oh,
I did get the privilege of rolling a ditto, machine.
yeah, and then you had, like, the triplicate copies and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so fun. So I did that, and then eventually after, I don't know, a couple of summers of doing that, and then I did 611 repair where people so 611 repair is where you have a landline, and if there's static on the line or you're no dial tone or whatever, you'd contact 611 by dialing 611, and then we'd be like, "Illinois Bell Repair, how can I help you?"
So
"What?
there you
Can't hear
were.
you."
You
Call
are you are on stage.
Yes, I did that, for a while, and then I worked, in the back with the cable in the back. There's a massive office space, all cubes. It was just like 100 people. And then I eventually moved and worked for the cable locators and dispatch where people would call Julie or call Julie to let you know before call Julie before you dig. And then Julie was an acronym for
Ah,
something
so
and you'd
you're
have
Julie.
yeah, so people would call in and they'd be like, "Hey, I need you to come mark where the telephone lines are before we dig something up and cut a
Right.
line." And so I kept the log of all the calls for uh, the guys go out and locate the cable. Yeah.
Wow,
Fun.
so I mean, what a cool progression though to go from, "Hi, you're on the air with Julie," to, to accounting, which, I mean, it's fun stuff.
Yeah,
Uh, but, I do kinda like the fact that you managed to transition, you decide, "Okay, accounting's not for me, and I can never be Julie forever."
right.
So, you go to New York, you hone your skills, but I think to me, what's really most impressive is the creativity behind Plauzzable. I mean, talk about problem solving. There
Uh,
is a problem that most comics will complain about,
oh,
probably in their in the green room, you're all probably sitting there bitching about the fact that nobody makes any money, but you gotta do this and you're working out your material and all that. And then boom, you're like, "Oh, I've got an idea." Like, how cool is that?
yeah. Yeah, I like a good problem to solve. I think that's my someone recently asked me what's my motivation. I'm like, I guess a big juicy challenge, because yeah, it's weird, right? Like, I do and you nailed it, comedians relentlessly complain about the fact that there's no money in it, There's so many jokes there, you know, I talk about inflation going up, price of coffee, price of gas, price of homes, everything's going up except my comedy career, like that's the general
Right.
rule. And yeah, I'm like, well, how can we fix that? Like instead of complaining about it, I'm like, what can we do to make it better?
Like you did something about it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's almost like, are you feeling okay? Because I mean, when it comes to comedians, I do have relationships with people who do comedy. And,
Right?
it's like if they're not complaining, they're not doing their job. I mean, most of comedy is like a hilarious bitch fest.
Oh, yes.
But you managed to solve this problem. Do they still complain to you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
good. All right.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely they do. And even when I'm like, "Well, I've solved that problem, you can do this." And oftentimes I find if people don't understand what they can't see. So if they haven't experienced it or they haven't seen it, then it can't be true. And
Right.
that extends to to the human population in general. If I didn't see it, then therefore it can't be true, like if this didn't happen to me, it probably didn't happen to anybody else. And I
Well,
find
I have to go to space to verify that the world is round.
right, exactly, right? Um so but there's a group, obviously, that have signed up for Plauzzable. We have hundreds of comedians on Plauzzable, and we have well over 1,000 users in general, so we have a lot of fans. But there are the people who are like, "Well, I can only picture Zoom because that's what I know," or "I can only picture, in person because that's what I know. So this other stuff is foreign to me, therefore, no." Uh,
So I'm going to ask you this about plausible because now I'm thinking in terms of this platform that you have, and I think in terms of society today. are there are there things that are off limits on plausible? Like if you get, because some comedians do the clean church humor, other comedians, as you know, are about as raunchy can be and offensive as can be, and different types of comedy. Do you have limitations to where you're like, "But you can't say this or you can't do that?" Or is it pretty much open and, you could be as offensive as you want or political as you want or sexual as you want, as many dick jokes as you want? I mean, can you find all of this on Plausible?
You can, yeah. And fans, if you can sort by the type of humor you like.
What is
So,
there, a sort or like dick jokes?
it's clean comedy,
Okay,
like corporate, HR friendly. Uh, then there's moderate, somewhere walking the line, I guess. And then there's club comedy, which is what you'd expect if you saw a club. And then there's blue, which is your dick jokes. They're like
right,
real raunchy stuff beyond your club humor. And people, so when comedians enroll, they're encouraged to check those boxes so that they can set expectations. And, if you say you do clean comedy or corporate comedy, then it should be HR friendly,
right.
It
Yeah,
should
because I
be
mean, the last thing you wanna do is, like, have the church lady, Lady Ann or something,
yeah,
click on, Jason, who's gonna be making abortion jokes because that's probably not gonna work out very well, you
yeah.
know?
And the thing is there are people who do multiple of those, which is fine. So they may have checked all of those boxes. And then there's also topics. The comedians can also put in what topics they cover. Some comedians are very political, or they talk about religion, or they talk about, and there's others that talk about relationship and are self-deprecating, so they can click those boxes. So a fan can come in and check the boxes, like maybe I don't want to hear anything heavy, maybe I just want to hear, wordplay like puns and innuendo or double entendre. Great, just that, none of this. They can select that, and then it will filter through what comedians do that. um, so, and as we move forward in development, we'll continue to those algorithms will improve, obviously, but also the filters will be modified and changed and improved so that the shows can actually reflect, because there might be multiple types of comedians in a particular show, that one may do one thing and one may do another thing. Yeah.
Right. Now, as far as audience interaction, I mean, you go to a comedy club, I'm usually that poor schmuck that's sitting in the front row, you know, what luck. Typically you're gonna pick on the guy in the front row, I'm the fat guy or I'm the this or that. Yeah, this fucking guy, And, bad word. And so you get picked on. So I mean, with plausible, you got a you got a guy, he's on stage on the
Yeah.
screen, but then you got all of your audience on screen. do they typically find some poor schmuck on the screen and start picking on whatever poor schmuck? How do they know who's in the front row? And does
Well,
anyone actually have a 2-drink minimum?
no 2 drink minimums. There's no minimum, no maximum, 'cause you're at home, there's no commute, all is good there. The what comedians see, so what's different about it is, um the comedian is always larger than everybody else on the screen, not full screen, but they're larger
Mhm.
than everybody else on the screen, so they maintain focus. That because if we're in a gallery view, like, everybody's familiar with, like, a gallery view,
Sure.
I'm
And
looking
everyone's
to see what everybody's doing, you know?
right.
I'm scoping out, like, "What's your background? What are you doing? Oh, what's that person got in their fridge?" You know, whatever.
I bet that guy's a dentist.
Yes, right? Exactly, and so yeah. So, um, so on Plauzzable, the comedian is always dominant on the left-hand side, and they can also bring someone else to the stage, so those 2 people will stack on the left-hand side, so if there's a guest or something like that. The audience is all currently to the right-hand side, and they'll carousel through. So, like, you would take your mouse and scroll up and
Yeah.
down. You don't have to click through to another screen, nothing like that, but they can see depending on what kind of device they're on. They can see multiple people in the audience at any given time. No different than us being on stage with a spotlight. We can only see a handful of people, unless we pan right or left. So, or pan with our eyes. So we would
There.
a scroll is fairly simple.
Nice.
Um, but the audio, there's no audio delays or cutouts, so we can hear everybody laugh in real time, and it doesn't cut out the punchline. It doesn't cut out the speaker unless someone's doing something really loud, on their end. Uh, so
Is
yeah.
is there is there other like to control, like, let's say, we're because I mean, you see this on Zoom all the time, right? And so you got somebody there talking about, "Well, let me demonstrate. This is a spreadsheet," and you could tell because it has cells. And then you got some a-hole in the background who's got the, the husband or wife is running the vacuum and the kids are barking and the
Yeah.
dogs are screaming or whatever. And I mean, is there someone that can mute that so the rest of the people can
Yeah.
enjoy their show?
Yeah, so the host comedian can mute or the host can have a co-host. Whoever initiated the show and put it on the schedule, they can make someone else a co-host so that if they're performing, someone else can be like, "Mute, mute, mute,"
Yeah.
or turn your video off if they're doing something inappropriate. So there is that capability that we're accustomed to.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. And then for like, I mean, to me, like I'm thinking about it and it's like, I'm at my house or I'm sitting at work because why
Mhm.
would I watch it at work, right? And so I'm sitting at work and I'm in the office. And of course, maybe everyone else is working around me, but I'm trying to sneak myself some comedy. I mean, how many people are actually, visibly, clapping and ha-haing? Or are they all, I mean, do you have a lot of people who are kind of hiding the fact that they're doing this when they shouldn't be?
Ideally, everybody's laughing and clapping all the
I mean,
time.
ideally, sure, but I mean, how many
So,
people are actually like, well,
uh, you know, I would say most of the people who come on, we'll turn it on, and a host at the beginning, a good host will say, "Hey, we encourage you to turn your video
don't
on.
need it. It's
You
gonna
need
suck
it,"
out it.
and they do a good job of explaining that, and then also, like, "Go ahead, don't be shy," like, you can turn it on, if appropriate. If you have a lot of background noise, of course, don't turn your audio on, but we have emojis with sound created specifically for comedy. So, like, we have a rim shot, we have a wah wah, we have, a yay, and then all of obviously laughter and applause. So people can use the emojis if they choose to, which are at a lower volume than everything else, so they also don't annoy or distract. Um, but typically, people are pretty good about putting on their camera and their audio, and yeah, I mean, that's vital to the success of a comedian.
Of course, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, listen, we've come to the end of my interview with you.
Oh,
I would love to ask you one very important question.
mhm.
Why haven't you been on Joe Rogan yet?
That's a great question.
Well, he needs to have you on. You know.
Well, thanks. Do you know Joe?
I don't, unfortunately. I was hoping maybe if you did, if you're like, "Oh, no, I've been on," it'd be like, "Great, introduce me." But I mean, I think you need to go on his show to promote this product so that way this service, not product, but this service can get bigger. I really like the concept.
Thanks, yeah, that would be great. I would love to. So,
Yes. So,
absolutely.
as we produce, content from this episode, which, by the way, let's both agree this is probably the greatest interview we've ever been on. We know, I get it.
Without a doubt.
I mean, come on. Then you get some micro content out of this, and you can kind of spread it out there and get Joe to pick it up and be like, "Hey, I gotta get Leanne on here." I mean, I realize that I've had Elon Musk, but I haven't had Leanne, so I gotta get Leanne on here. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
right. Yeah, definitely. So, like, even our followers, they can like and share and then tag
And
Joe
and and and
Rogan.
tag Joe
Yeah.
Rogan, be like, "Look at this. She was on the Brainsky Unleashed podcast. Not only should he have you on, but why wouldn't he have me on? I mean, look at me. I'm sex appeal. I'm just saying."
Yeah. And you're such a great host.
Damn right. You're absolutely right. So listen, everyone, please visit Plauzzable. I'm going to sign up. I'm going to be in the audience. I'm going to clap and not run a vacuum, or maybe I will run a vacuum on mute just so others can sit there and watch me vacuum while watching comedy. And so you should go to plauzzable.com. Now, Leanne, spell that for me, and we will have a link, but go ahead and spell it because it's different than you think.
PLAUZZABLE.com.
And look at that. I guarantee I'm probably the only one that made her spell that out. Again, Leanne, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you, everyone, for sharing this episode, tagging Joe Rogan. He needs to have this guy and this gal on his show.
Thank you.
You bet.